Before you swing a hammer, you have to nail the numbers. Here's how. I'm gonna talk about three things. Big picture items, so safety items, big problems, common line items that you're gonna see in a rehab project, and a contingency trick that I love to use. First, fix what scares buyers and lenders. Big ticket items when you're renovating houses can be very expensive. So things like replacing a roof, the HVAC system, electrical systems, plumbing, big plumbing changes, and foundations. Those are like my big five. And those big five, you wanna look at those and pull them out of price per square foot if you're looking at price per square foot to come up with rehab costs. So a roof should be a standalone item, and you should have an idea in your area of how much roof costs. Every area is gonna be a little bit different. I'm gonna give you some numbers for me in Tennessee. A roof is typically costing me somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000 if I have to replace the roof. Now, keep in mind there's decking in the roof too, so that means like all the plywood, if all of that is rotten, moldy, problematic, holes in it, price is gonna go up. So that's typically like a shingle roof, maybe one piece of decking or two, but not like all the decking and the roof, it's gonna go up like another $5,000. So I know that when I walk up to a house and I say I have to replace a roof, I know that I have to put about a $10,000 price tag on it. Here's a quick tip, okay? You can talk to the homeowner about their insurance and see if we can get insurance to pay for the roof. This is a huge hack that we teach inside of 7-Figure Flipping, inside of our mastermind group, that a lot of times we can get a free roof before we buy the house. So if you want to learn more about that, well, I'll put a link to 7figureflipping.com in the comments or the description here, and you can go there and look at all the trainings that we do in some of our coaching programs. It's things like that that will make you a lot of money. All right, HVAC systems. HVAC systems, if you're replacing a single unit, it's probably somewhere around $5,000. Electrical, if I have to rewire a whole house, so we have a lot of knob and tube wiring in older houses, and then aluminum wiring down in Pensacola, Florida. I had a lot of houses that we did that had aluminum wiring. And there's a fixed cost to that, maybe it's $5,000 or $10,000. Pretty much every one of these line items is probably about $5,000 to $10,000. If I have to replace all the plumbing, like I just did a house in Tennessee, it had old cast iron plumbing. I replaced all the plumbing with PEX, okay, all the way down to the main tie-in to the house, effectively at the under the crawl space. That was an extra $10,000 on that project. So I can get some ballparks on that when I'm walking through a house. And the goal here of what I'm gonna teach you on this video is to get those ballparks while you're walking the house before you buy it. And then once you put it under contract, then you bring the contractor in to give you actual hard quotes. And then you can adjust, you can renegotiate, there's a lot of things that you can do. You don't have to be a contractor. You can get these ballpark estimates in 10 minutes walking through a house just to get an idea using this video, okay? Next thing I wanna talk about real quick is price per square foot. So this goes a little bit with the next section, but if I have a basic cosmetic flip, I'm probably spending about $20 a square foot. If I have like a medium type flip, maybe I'm tearing down a wall or two, I'm opening up some space, maybe I'm adding like a half bath or something like that, I'm probably more like $30 a square foot. And then if I'm doing something more extravagant, like I'm opening up multiple spaces, I'm adding a bathroom, I'm doing upscale finishes and furnishings, I'm probably around $40 to $50 a square foot. So I just renovated a whole house in Tennessee. I added a half bath, I took down one wall. I didn't have any major things except for plumbing, and I was right around $30 a square foot, maybe $32 a square foot. So that is like a medium type renovation, right? And now keep in mind, all of those square footage, price per square foot I gave you doesn't include the big ticket items. You're gonna wanna add in the roof as its own item. You're gonna wanna add in the HVAC update. You're gonna wanna add in a foundation repair that's outside of the price per square foot. So if it's a basic interior renovation and I need a new roof, I'm gonna do 20 bucks a square foot plus the $10,000 for my roof. And that's gonna give me a broad estimate of what it's gonna cost me, okay? Now, inspections. I wanna talk about that for a second. A great tip, like a huge pro tip, is to get a home inspector to do an inspection before you buy the house. So what I like to do is I like to get my ballpark estimate, my back of the envelope math that I do on a walkthrough with a seller. I like to put that house under contract, and then I get a home inspector to come out and do an inspection for me. Because I know that they are gonna go up in the attic, they're gonna go in the crawl space, they're gonna go all around. And now here's my real tip. And I usually only tell this to my mastermind members, but since you're watching this video here on YouTube, I want you to know it too. This is gonna be huge for you if you do this. So the home inspector that I work with is I call them up and I say, hey, I don't need a big report. I don't need you to take a bunch of pictures and write this long report and take the whole day after you walk through the house with me to write the report. All I want you to do is go through the house with me. I'll be there with you, and then tell me the big things that are wrong with it. Like everything that you would write up in that report, just tell me all of it, okay? Maybe send me a couple photos, but you don't have to spend the next 3 hours writing a long report. And so what it allows me to do is, instead of like $400 or $500 for a home inspection, I can get the inspector to do it for like 150 bucks. And so saves me a ton of money. I don't need the big report. And then the benefit for me is I see everything that a home inspector is gonna do after I flip the house. How many times have you renovated a house, the buyer brings in their home inspector, and that home inspector is pointing out things that you never seen before? You didn't see that there's some wiring up in the attic that's not in a junction box. You see, and it freaks out the buyers. So what I do is I want to see all that up front so that I can fix it during renovation. And it's always so much easier to fix these things while you're renovating the house than it is once it's finished being renovated. So that's the biggest tip that I can give you in this first section. Now let's price cosmetic stuff without any of the guesswork. Paint and flooring hide sins, but watch cost creep. Okay, kitchens and bathrooms sell houses, all right? We all know this. You've seen so many of the TV shows that have taught you this. But when you're doing this, there's areas where you can save a lot of money and the homeowner has no idea that you did. So what happens a lot of times, cabinetry is a huge expense when it comes to flipping houses. So to make a great kitchen, a lot of people are just ripping out all the cabinets and they're putting in custom cabinets a lot of times. Custom cabinets can cost a lot of money. There are RTA cabinets, so that's ready to assemble cabinets, that I love to use, that are way cheaper. They're like half the cost a lot of times of custom cabinets, and way better than the stuff that's sitting in Lowe's already built out. So these are flat cabinets that come in boxes, and my team just assembles them on site. So they're effectively like measured and semi-custom. You just have to put them together. And this is gonna save you a ton of money when it comes to renovating your kitchen. The other thing that I would recommend is, if the cabinets are in good shape, a lot of times what I like to do is I just like to strip the cabinets and repaint them. If you repaint cabinets and put on some new knobs and pulls, that's gonna change the entire look of a kitchen, and it can save you a ton of money. That's probably like a fifth of the cost of custom cabinets doing it that way. So look at some of those things. Same thing with countertops. Countertops have come down in price massively, so that's an area where you can save. You can put in some really great like granite countertops. I just did one in a house that I just renovated where it was like textured granite. It almost feels like leather, really cool, and it was a very low price. Way cheaper than quartz in a house like that. And it's only a little bit more expensive than doing laminate and looks so much better. So that's a big like wow factor that you can do in your house for not that much money. Same thing with bathrooms. You can find really inexpensive tile these days. You can make great patterns. Some of the old retro tile is coming back, so finding that in Lowe's or Home Depot or some of the big box stores, there's some great prices on that stuff. There are some great flooring these days that is very cheap. I put some LVP in the house that I just did, this laminate vinyl plank type flooring, 99 cents a square foot. I got the whole thing installed for $2 a foot in my 2,400 square foot house. All new flooring. It's about 2,000 square foot that wasn't bathrooms that I put, $4 grand for flooring installed. So there's some really great options out there. You don't have to put down a $5 floor. That 99-cent flooring that we put down looks amazing. It's sturdy, it's great, it cleans up messes very easily. If it gets wet, it doesn't bow and things like that like hardwood does. So think about some of that stuff. Same thing with like doors and windows. So I like to clean up the windows if I can. A lot of times you'll have a window that has a seal that's broken. So it's double paned already, but it looks like it needs to be replaced. You can just replace the glass. There's companies that'll come out and do that. Another huge hack that I use inside of the bathrooms is I like to refinish tile a lot of times. So most of the time you see these TV shows, you're like, demo day, you're just gonna bust out all the tile, take out the tub. Some of those tubs, those old cast iron tubs, are actually great. They're in great shape. They'll never be, like if you ever try to get one of those out, it's impossible. Just spray those. Have a company come in and for like $1,000, they will spray and refinish the tile and the tub, and it'll look like a brand new setup. Like absolutely incredible. I do this on projects all the time. So all of these are like huge hacks to get your costs down and really get into that like $20 a square foot instead of bumping up to 30. Every dollar you saved in a flip is another dollar in your pocket. And I also have a spreadsheet that I can give to you, and it's totally free. You guys can download it. I'll put the link in the description here. And it's gonna talk about some rough estimates on pricing and things like that. So it's what I use for my flips. If you guys want it, you can just go down in the description and download that. Totally free. You guys can use it. Hopefully it helps you, and if it does, I hope that you subscribe to the channel, share the video with a friend that needs this kind of stuff. So the next thing that I want to talk about is DIY versus general contractors, because this is another huge bump in your costs. A general contractor is typically going to cost you about 10 to 15% more than if you're subcontracting that out yourself. Or you just have a project manager that runs your project. Project managers are great. You can pay them a percentage of the profit. You can pay them a fixed cost. You could pay them salary if you're doing enough projects. That's what I always did, and highly recommend that. Now, a GC is nice if you have a full-time job, you're doing your first project, something like that, but underwrite the general contractor, make sure that they're on site, make sure that they know the project. They're not just gonna call their project manager, not show up, phone it in, not take ownership and responsibility for everything that goes wrong. A general contractor can be a great benefit for you, but with that increased cost, you better have a reduced workload for you. That general contractor should be getting almost a turnkey product to you. And so think about that. Just increase the price if you're going to use a GC by about 10 to 15% all in, which can be a lot. Finally, protect yourself from surprises. Murphy's Law loves old houses. So budget a buffer. You gotta budget a contingency in here. There's a bunch of things that could happen to your project. Permits and hold time costs are a big one. So if any delays happen in your project, this is gonna cost you a lot more money. Your job is to be on time and on budget. If you can do that, you'll reduce your holding costs. And those are things like interest, utilities, you have to pay taxes all on the property when you sell it for the hold time that you have, insurance, like all of those things that come into your hold costs. And that can be a lot, like almost like 1% of the amount of money that you have involved in the project for that, money costs and interest and utilities and all those things. So one thing you want to think about is a contingency budget. I like to usually add in about $5,000 in contingency depending on the size of the project. You could think about it like 10%. So if I had a $100,000 project, that was the rehab budget, I'm going to be adding in a $10,000 contingency. But here's the thing about contingencies. Many people get this wrong. You're being conservative with your ARV or after repair value. So if your after repair value is $400,000, and that's kind of like pushing the comps, you might run the numbers when you go to buy the house at like $375. And then you also add in a contingency of 10% into your rehab costs. And then you also like kind of pad the numbers somewhere else. So next thing you know, your offer is so low that no one's ever gonna say yes to it, and you're getting beat out by other flippers. If you're gonna build in a 10% contingency, then it's okay to be not necessarily aggressive, but be on point with the others. What you don't wanna do is build in 3 different contingencies in your numbers, and next thing you know, you're never getting any deals. So you definitely wanna like dial those things in, and I'll do future videos on estimating ARVs, running comps, making sure you're dialed in on that stuff because it's really important. But when it comes to rehab costs, if you're conservative on your ARV, then it might be okay to just leave your rehab budget as is. But almost always, your rehab budget is gonna go over by a few $1,000s. There's gonna be some unexpected things that are gonna come up. So build in a contingency. It's my biggest advice that I have for you is if you have a $40,000 rehab budget, just know if you're tight, if you have done this 100 times and the crew is great, you're not gonna have any delays, then you can probably get away with it. But everybody else, you probably want to build in a little bit of buffer. My last project went over by about $5,000. Again, I got a free rehab budget template that I'm going to put in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. And coming up, I'm going to do more videos on ARVs, comps, things like that. So make sure you subscribe, follow along, and I'll see you on the next one.